might I perhaps invite Angus Taylor, who is the Minister for Energy and Emissions Reduction from Australia, to share his thoughts with us now, and we'll come back to Alok in due course.
Well, thank you, Anne-Marie, and thank you to the IEA for hosting this important and very timely summit. It's great to be speaking to you from Tasmania, which has very recently achieved zero emissions in its electricity grid. We welcome the IEA's focus on practical solutions, and it's very clear that international collaboration to achieve the development of low emissions technologies is absolutely vital if we're to achieve net zero emissions globally. The Australian government's firmly committed to getting to net zero as soon as possible, and preferably, of course, by 2050. But ambition is one thing, action and achievements is what ultimately matters. We're already 36% down on our 2005 baseline in our domestic economy, on the way to meeting and beating our 2030 targets. But as we look forward, our focus is very much on the how we're going to achieve these important outcomes. Australia is deploying renewable energy at 10 times the global average per person. We now have more solar per person of any country in the world, and the most wind and solar of any country outside of Europe. Now, that investment, as we heard in the earlier panel, is now being driven by rapid cost reductions in renewable energy and doesn't require the subsidies that we've seen in the past. We now need to repeat that success we're seeing, for instance, with household solar across the next round of new and emerging technologies like storage, carbon capture, green steel, green aluminium, and of course, hydrogen. Australia's technology investment roadmap, which we developed and launched last year, is a plan to get these and other technologies to cost parity with our existing energy sources and technologies. We'll invest $18 billion in low emissions technologies over the decade to 2030, and our leadership as a government is expected to drive at least $50 billion in new co-investment by the private sector and other levels of government in Australia. The goal we've set for each technology is very specific. If you take hydrogen, for example, we're targeting to get the cost of clean hydrogen to under Australian $2 per kilogram. We know at that level, it'll be competitive as an energy source for industry, power, heat generation, and so on. Now, Australia, of course, is a trusted supplier of energy across the Indo-Pacific, and achieving our hydrogen goal will enable us to support our partner countries' efforts customer countries' efforts to decarbonise while growing their economies. We're also collaborating on low emissions technologies with other key partners across the world, including Singapore, the US, Germany, Korea, and of course the UK. And we particularly welcome the Biden administration's commitment to advancing new technologies that will reduce emissions and create economic prosperity. The race to develop effective vaccines against COVID-19 shows what can be achieved when the world works together towards a common goal. In the lead up to COP26, it's vital that countries work together to get low emissions technologies to parity. Removing the green premium, the price difference between the economics of current technologies and low or zero carbon technologies, is the key to widespread global adoption. This will make reducing emissions practically achievable for all countries across the globe. Finally, it's my pleasure to announce that Australia will be contributing $1 million Australian dollars to the Clean Energy Transitions Program. And we're delighted to support this program and the IEA as a forum to discuss and invest in the development of practical solutions to the world's great policy challenges. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you today.
Minister, thank you very much indeed. We now have our COP President Delegate with us. So, Alok, if I may, I'd like to invite you to make some remarks. Thank you.
Anne-Marie, thank you very much. My apologies. I think technology overtook us there. But look, can I also just add to Anne-Marie's welcome, my welcome to all friends who are taking part in this discussion, particularly our panel. It was great to hear from Angus just now. I look forward to hearing from all of our participants. As I said in my opening speech, enhancing international collaboration is one of my 4 key priorities for the UK's COP26 presidency. And of course, That is what we're here to discuss here. How do we enhance collaboration in accelerating technology and innovation in key sectors? Many countries have set ourselves these targets of net zero emissions or carbon neutrality, and as Fatih made clear in his opening remarks, we've now got 70% of global GDP covered by a net zero target. But of course, we know that change only comes about through action, and progress can be faster, and it can be easier, and it can most definitely be lower cost if we take action together. And if we work together, I do believe that we can innovate faster, and we can create these economies of scale that we all want to see. We will create these stronger incentives for investment, and of course, level playing fields, which is so important. But I just want to re-emphasize my point that these gains depend on our targeting collaboration within each sector. Each emitting sector faces different challenges, as we know. So let's take the power sector. The challenge is to reform electricity markets and to support coal communities in a just transition. This, of course, is very different from stopping deforestation, where we need level playing fields so that sustainably produced commodities can compete in global markets. The road transport sector, again, is different. The challenge here is to shift industry investment more quickly towards zero-emission vehicles, so that zero-emission vehicles are cheaper than petrol and diesel cars all over the world. Now, we know there is a very rich history of practical collaboration on climate change going back many years. And yet, I have to say, we have lacked the focused collaboration in each sector that we need to deliver this critical mass of countries to shift the global market in individual sectors. So we need ministers coming together. Ministers are actually responsible for relevant policy, not just environment ministers and foreign ministers, but indeed all those relevant policy ministers. And we also need a diverse group of ministers, particularly in terms of gender representation. I believe we must broaden our collaboration, and it is why, as I said this morning, together with partners, we have created 3 new fora in 3 of the largest emitting sectors, energy, transport, and land use. And that is why we must ensure that there are clear structures for governments, businesses, and non-state actors to work together internationally in each emitting sector. That is, as far as I'm concerned, very much the proposition for discussion in this session and more widely in today's summit. And I therefore look forward to hearing the views of all our panelists. And I really want to ensure that COP26 is not only the moment where we agree on the vital common goals of net zero, but when we begin that serious work to achieve it together. Thank you very much indeed. And let me hand back to my dear friend, Anne-Marie Trevelyan.
CPD, thank you very much indeed for those thoughtful words. If I may, I'd like now to turn to the Czech Republic and to René Neděla, who is the Deputy Energy Minister.
Okay, thank you. I hope that you hear me well. Yes, yes. Distinguished colleagues, I would like to thank the organizers for holding this remarkable summit. It is my pleasure to contribute to discussions dedicated to the pressing aspects of getting to net zero. We need to keep in mind that in terms of meeting the climate commitments, different countries have different paths and needs according to their specification. But it is desirable that we work together in order to ensure swift, affordable, and just transition. The Czech Republic, as part of the European Union, remains committed to the common target of reaching climate neutrality by 2050 and supports an increased emphasis on cost-effective decarbonization of different sectors. As many time is very limited today, I will focus on international cooperation in a handful of technology areas playing a vital role in our climate efforts. Firstly, hydrogen. The Czech Republic is founding a member of the European Clean Hydrogen Alliance, an active member of Hydrogen Europe, and closely cooperates with the European Commission's DG GROW in the area of hydrogen technologies. As increased production of hydrogen in the near future is expected, we are currently developing our own national hydrogen strategy, which aims to enable greenhouse gas emissions reduction while maintaining the performance and export potential of the Czech industry. Secondly, nuclear. We cherish our extensive collaboration under International Energy Agency, Nuclear Energy Agency, and International Atomic Energy Agency, whose expertise has been of immense benefit to the Czech Republic. Furthermore, we monitor ongoing development of small modular reactors, with great interest. Our research institutions are developing a molten salt reactor energy well and a gas-cooled fast reactor Allegro. We also see the potential of nuclear in hydrogen production. Thirdly, carbon capture and storage. I would like to highlight the Czech-Norwegian cooperation on the CO2 Spicer project, as this will most likely to be the first ever pilot project on CO2 storage in Central and Eastern Europe. Finally, energy storage. Together with other EU member states, we are taking part in the European Battery Alliance, which aims to develop an innovative, competitive, and sustainable battery value chain. Moreover, I am pleased to announce that the Czech Republic has recently joined the EA's Energy Storage Technology Collaboration Program, where our research are going to focus on Carnot batteries. We are convinced that the TCP expert platforms provide vast opportunities for mutual beneficial cooperation in research, development, and implementation of future-proof technologies. I would like to conclude by stating that the Czech Republic very much appreciates and benefits from the diverse energy cooperation and many more initiatives, both on the EU and international level. Thank you for your attention and look forward for future collaboration. Thank you.
Minister, thank you very much indeed. Now, if I may, I will turn to Maria Gabriel, who is the Commissioner for Innovation, Research, Culture, Education and Youth at the European Commission. Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Distinguished colleagues, thank you very much. I fully agree that by working effectively together, we can achieve the shared goals of Paris Agreement faster and at a lower cost. Half of the emissions reductions necessary to achieve our shared climate ambition depend on technologies that require innovation and investment to become effective and competitive. That's why for us, the European Green Deal provides a comprehensive roadmap for achieving climate neutrality driven by the twin, green and digital transitions. But it must also be a socially fair transition. Central to accelerating decarbonization efforts is the clean energy transition. As we know, production and use of energy accounts for more than 75% of the European greenhouse gas emissions. This is why, over the past years, we have put forward initiatives on energy systems integration, hydrogen, the renovation of buildings, offshore renewable energy, and batteries. And our research and innovation funding is increasingly designed to deliver on these ambitions. For example, we are now evaluating the many excellent proposals received for the Horizon 2020 European Green Deal call. Here we allocated 1 billion euros investment for projects tackling critical issues such as developing green ports and airports or building up hydrogen capacity production. Horizon Europe, the new European Research and Innovation Program for the next 7 years, reinforces our stances in the area of the green transition. Our Green Deal targets for 2050 look far, but actually we are very conscious not to have 30 years to adapt. I see it rather as an urgent call for action in terms of research and innovation. To get where we want to be in 2050, investment should be decided in the coming years. That means mastering a roadmap of technologies, following a strategic prioritization during the lifetime for us of Horizon Europe that includes key partnerships with member states and industry. And I agree that critical mass and effective structures for government collaborations are helpful. So is proactively reaching out to private sector stakeholders. And In our Horizon Europe program, we decided to dedicate at least 35% of the budget for climate-related activities, including public-private partnerships and collaborative research. And we are also seeking to intensify and increase the impact of our research and innovation collaboration with member states through a revamped strategic energy technology plan, or more widely through a revitalized European research area via a series of pilot projects. Funders should strive to avoid duplication of efforts and costs, leading to locking in of emissions using suboptimal technologies and incompatible standards or infrastructures. And that's why for us, mission innovation is an excellent example of effective collaboration and pooling resources to achieve critical mass. Mission innovation members represent over 80% of global government investment in clean energy research and innovation. It involves partners in such a way to ensure accelerating innovative solutions in their journey towards the market. And research and innovation investments cannot do this alone. We work here with the International Energy Agency, with the International Renewable Energy Agency. I'm very glad that we have here the World Economic Forum, the Global Covenant of Mayors. The needs of the regional and local level are really important. And we are working, of course, with the World Bank and the Breakthrough Energy. But now, what I would like to say is that mission innovation is an agile coalition that enables us to find solutions to specific innovation challenges. It also involves our young innovators through our Champions program. And my strong wish is to give more visibility to this initiative, to have it more inclusive, reaching out to other countries. Just last week, we discussed with Minister Jobé about the upcoming ministerial organized by Chile, where we'll launch the second phase of mission innovation. And our wish is for mission innovation to be a key deliverable at COP26. Indeed, we are now expanding this model by launching impact-oriented public-private missions with ambitious goals that can lead to tipping points in the cost and scale of clean energy solutions. From the start, mission innovation has been twinned with Clean Energy Ministerial. Here we have excellent cooperation with my colleague, Kadri Simpson. And mission innovation and clean energy ministerial cooperation exemplifies the need to find synergies. And that's my last message, synergies between technology push and demand pull, and to improve understanding of new technologies among policymakers, infrastructure managers, and regulators. So yes, more widely, we are currently reflecting on ways to enhance international cooperation in our priority areas, addressing new opportunities, and at the same time to find the right balance with how to preserve our strategic autonomy and the international promotion of Europeans' research and innovation principles and values. So I'm looking forward to working with all of you to make net zero ambition a reality around the world. Thank you.
Maria, thank you. May I turn now to Francesco Starace, the CEO of Enel.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you again to IEA for this great opportunity. And also for the excellent study that was presented, the World Roadmap to Net Zero by 2050. This is a report that really is a milestone in the direction in which everyone is going. And I would like to take these 2 minutes to talk to you about cities, about metropolitan areas. Why that? Because today we have about 50% of the world population living in large metropolitan areas around the world. And we know this is increasingly going to be the case in the next future. And cities and large metropolitan areas today accrue for 70% of the world's CO2 emission and 78% of global energy demand. So if there is a space, a place where we can really give a punch and do something about the CO2 emissions of the world, that's in cities. That's in large metropolitan areas. I have to say, with the World Economic Forum, I am co-chairing a very interesting initiative together with Jean-Pascal Tricoire. It's called Net Zero Carbon Cities Systemic Efficiency Initiative. It is about systems that today are available, technologies that today exist, ideas that today circulate, best practices that are put in place everywhere, but to try and make sense of all this and provide city administrators, ministers, like many of you are, with a toolbox to understand what is going on around the world and how the experience of one, the mistakes of another, all together can make sense. And this word together that we've heard before by Alok Sharma, by Maria, is a word that I think is really important to make a change. And if you think about it, in cities, we are together. We are really close together, more than we ever have been in the centuries of our history. And this issue of large megacities, large metropolitan areas affects even more profoundly what is shaping the energy future of the southern part of the world. I think after me, you will hear from the Executive Director of Sustainable Energy for All, Damilola, talk about what happens in Africa and where a large portion of the population still has poor access or no access at all to electricity, to clean electricity. Well, that population is moving to city. In Africa, the population living in large metropolitan areas is bound to treble, to go from 500 millions to 1.5 millions between now and 2050. So you can imagine the importance of addressing heads-on the huge efficiency, energy efficiency, and decarbonizing effort that we have to carry out in this part of the world. So the message here that I would like to leave to you is big effort on trying to make sense of how we use, consume, and go about the use of resources, not only energy, but also materials in general, in those large parts of the world where most of the population is now congregating. Cities need renewable energy, cities need energy, cities need water, they need everything because we live there. And networks are going to be extremely important to make sure that they sustain our life in a decent manner around these large metropolitan areas. So a big initiative is also going to be about building an infrastructure that moves electricity around from places where no one lives, but where a lot of wind is, a lot of solar irradiation lies, and where the people historically decided to live, large cities. And it's a strange thing because we now have a situation where most of the natural resources of renewable nature are far out when compared to where we want to live. And that brings in the big importance of caring, planning, and providing a network that takes care of this big metropolitan area world that is in front of us. So thank you for your attention. And I hope this has been a useful message for all of you.
Francesco, thank you so very much. You are so right that getting those networks right is going to be one of the critical elements, I think, of our success in the decades ahead. If I may, I would invite Monica Aria, who is the Special Advisor for the High-Level Champions for Climate Action, to share her thoughts now.
Thank you, Anne-Marie, and thank you to all of you for your insight. So I will complement what you have said, because I think the puzzle we have ahead of us is how to bring the best ideas for this imperative, which is transformation. And I like the words that the president designate for COP used: focused collaboration around sectors. So the champions have done something that is unusual, which is to focus on stakeholder activation, but we have a very deliberate agenda around sectors. So this is unusual. And let me share with you 3 things that have been very helpful in the work we do, because we have to work with everyone. So how do we do that on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, and especially in the run-up to COP? So first point, is very important to align our work around shared pathways. And even though this sounds very normal and common sense, you'd be surprised how that is not how a lot of stakeholders work. So this idea of having a shared pathway for each sector has been a very good way of bringing a lot of stakeholders on board. Not everybody sees the pace of the transition in the same way, but the tool is very important and it works. And we have put out what we call the Race to Zero breakthroughs this year. I invite you to visit them, and it's basically around giving that sense of sequence and priority per sector, where we need to be by the end of the year, where we need to be by 2025, where we need to be in the years that matter. Point number 2 is about the word experimentation, because we know that there is this drive for collaboration. We know that it matters, but how do we improve the architecture of collaboration? And in my particular case, because I work in the space of zero emission vehicles, and I really, really would like to see the end of the internal combustion engine within my lifetime, I would like to celebrate what the UK government is doing in the run up to COP, because this idea of having sectoral campaigns is unusual and it's an experiment, and I actually think it's a very positive one. Why? Because on the one hand, you create a space for governments where they talk, and then they agree and disagree, and at the same time it gives a signal to non-state actors. And where we do in the non-state actors space is to think about acceleration campaigns and ways of creating a positive ambition loop. And finally, and this is my bias because I come from Costa Rica and it's a small country with big ideas, I'd like to make the case that even though we have to be very focused on the sectoral collaboration, we also have to expand the circle of engagement, because sometimes when we think about the big countries and the big companies, we tend to forget the smaller players, and they can also bring a lot of very powerful insights, and they are agile. So my final point is that we need to make sure that whatever we do, even if it's focused in terms of the sectoral scope, it has to be ambitious in how we engage youth, women, scientists, leaders in communities, people working on the just transition, because if we don't do that, then we risk sending the signal that not everybody's welcome in the conversation, and I'm sure we don't want to send that signal. So thank you very much, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Monica, thank you very much indeed. And I think, yes, anyone listening in who hasn't picked up on the Race to Zero absolutely should. I think all of you as high-level champions are being incredibly proactive and impactful by driving that through the whole world of non-state actors, who of course are critical enablers to making us all achieve the net zero challenge that we are looking to do. If I may, it would be a pleasure to turn to Magali Anderson, who is the Chief Sustainability and Innovation Officer at Lafarge. Magali, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you to IEA, which has always been a great partner to the cement industry. I'm very honored to be here today in such a distinguished panel. All of you have stressed the importance of collaboration. As a large industry player, I think I can only concur. And we are ready for it. We signed last September the business ambition for 1.5 degree with science-based target. But we also know that achieving net zero is way bigger than what any individual entity can do. And that's why when I heard Build Back Better from Alok Sharma earlier, I think in this construction industry is hearing that message. So what we do, what I heard also is CCUS, carbon capture, usage and storage, and hydrogen mentioned several times, and that's pure music to my ears, because we need governments to develop the right CO2 transport infrastructure, very hard to say for French. We need industrial partners to help us to find the right geological storage, but also how to transform CO2 into, for example, minerals, which we can put back in our cement. But we also need our customers to be incentivized to adopt our new cements and new carbon neutral solutions. I could go on and on, but I will even go one step further, in fact. I will say the net zero transition world will fail if we do not manage to put together unprecedented collaboration between the industry and the policymakers in order to facilitate the development of the business case that is required to guarantee short and long-term investments. So, for example, as I just said, developing the market for low carbon and circular product. There's a lot of discussion right now around carbon borders mechanism, which is also needed. And of course, across the construction sector, we need to have a full understanding of sustainability performance, including life cycle performance. At our level, what we try to do, we are part of the Global Alliance for Building and Construction, where it's a coalition of states and non-states actors working together to do that. I personally co-chair the WBCSD work on the built environment. We have the Global Cement and Concrete Association, which has joined the Mission Possible partnership. All of that is great, but again, I will just conclude. Those collaborations are fundamental for us, because winning the race to zero is not going to be possible in a normal scenario. Just tweaking existing models here and there, that won't work. What we need is a true change of model. And as I said before, unprecedented collaboration. I think we're entering very new ground, which is, on one hand, is very exciting time, but on another hand, we know that we have no choice than succeeding. So we will do that with innovation in all fronts: industry and technology, policymakers, regulatory framework, and customer behaviors. Thank you.
Magali, thank you very much indeed. And yes, there are challenges indeed in that industry, but critical, because also in steel, we need those materials for the new green technologies. So finding those solutions is absolutely critical. If I may, I will turn now to Damilola Ogubi, who is, of course, as many of you will know, the CEO for Sustainability Energy for All. Damilola.
Thank you very much. I have the sobering task of bringing us back to reality in terms of how many people who don't have access. So please bear with me. So in 2015, just before the world agreed on the Paris Agreement, governments also committed to 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Underlining both Paris and SDGs is to just show how interconnected we really are and how we need to all collaborate to meet global goals. COVID has clearly shown us and basically made us wake up on how interconnected the world really is. In many parts of the world, the pandemic has reversed a lot of great work that has happened in energy and pushed 150 million people back into extreme poverty. Therefore, we cannot meet our global goals if we do not work together. Unfortunately, we know we are behind. Today, we see evidence of steps we need to take to achieve net zero by 2050, which is quite encouraging. But I want to talk about one step which is very important, and that's delivering sustainable energy to almost 800 million people who lack access to electricity and 2.8 billion people who don't have any access to clean cooking. So in a nutshell, there are almost 3 billion people currently during this pandemic who just cannot stay at home. This is why we need to realize that the energy transition is also an energy access story. And as we talk about accelerating technologies and innovation, it also has to come into the energy access conversation. We are standing at a crossroad where COVID-19 has created a once-in-a-generation opportunity. We can choose to go with business as usual, rely on fossil fuels and inefficient technologies in an attempt to restart our economies, or we can actually recover better and put clean energy, technologies, and innovation at the heart of our efforts to deliver sustainable development. But there's work to be done, and we also have to support governments to do this, especially governments in developing countries and especially governments in Africa. They need to be supported on policies and regulation, and they also need to be able to enhance and talk about how they are going to transition out of it. It has to be a just transition. It can't be taking things that are happening in the global north and then bringing it to the global south and just assuming people will adopt it. That's why I'm so encouraged, and I'm really happy to also be co-chair along with Alok in the Energy Transition Council, because what has happened here is that the UK government has recognized that you can't just tell countries to transition without finding a solution to universal access. This year, I really feel, is the year of energy. This is the year we need to be bold. To support this, the UN Secretary General will convene a high-level dialogue on energy, which is the first time in 40 years, at the UN General Assembly in September. as Dialogue Champion and SE4, we will support increased ambition, and really happy to see the EU here, who's a global champion on energy access, and the UK, who's also a global champion on energy transition. And what we're trying to do is have more ambition as we develop energy compacts. And obviously Transfesco through Enel will be a global champion as we have through the whole process, and really lead on the private sector. So what we're trying to say is, on the way to COP and COP26, we need to create these moments. We cannot forget all these people. We need to bring this technology and innovation at an affordable price. And we need to say, what is the clean energy offer? What is going to be the difference to get people away from fossil in a relatively short period of time? Because right now, renewable deals actually take between 5 to 7 years to close. So it also have to think about time as we do this. So thank you for listening, and please put energy access with the whole energy transition story. Thank you.
Damilola, thank you. You're so right. When, yes, 2.8 billion people don't yet have clean cooking facilities, we have some journey to do to use the innovation and, as you say, the thinking that is right for every country's challenges to get that right. So thank you for making sure that that's firmly in the middle of all our thinking. Last but certainly not least of our speakers for this panel, may I turn to Børge Brende, who is the president for the World Economic Forum. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and I think this is a real reminder to all of us that we are at the moment of truth regarding whether we can overcome the climate challenge, but also energy access. In many ways, it's like squaring a circle, but we will make it happen. This all means that we also have to look ahead toward 2030 and 2050, and we must deliver like real meaningful progress today, also in this decade. I think the good news that we have seen today is that we know the key to unlocking a sustainable future is ambitious and aligned action. And an increasing number of countries and companies are setting emissions targets. There is so much commitment, and I see also a big game changer now in the private sector. Now we must operationalize it and work together to speed up and broaden clean energy transition. From the World Economic Forum side, we see 3 opportunities where stakeholders can take coordinated action, all major areas of global energy consumption. The first is integrated net zero solutions for cities. Cities account for 70% of emissions levels and over half of the global population. Achieving net zero will require integrated solutions with business and government pursuing systemic efficiency, clean electrification, ultra-efficient buildings, and connected digital infrastructure. The second is financing for clean energy in emerging and developing economies. Trillions of dollars are needed, and unlocking capital sitting on the global sidelines today is so critical. The money is there, we just have to put it at work. Clear policy signals and tailored financial solutions at scale can help to de-risk investments and create win-wins for economic development and the environment. The third action area is the hard one. The hard-to-abate sectors, such as steel, cement is already mentioned, aluminium, shipping, and aviation, representing today around 30% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Moving towards net zero for these sectors requires industry leadership to develop sector-specific solutions and for governments to support enabling policy frameworks, which can now start to happen within the Mission Possible partnership. We have to walk the talk and make it a Mission Possible real partnership. Thank you.
Børge, thank you so much. Thank you to all of you. I'd like to express my gratitude to all of you who've spoken today. You've given us so many ideas, and I'm really looking forward to working with all of you to shape these in the run-up to Glasgow in November. Having listened to the views of you on the panel, it's clear to me that to meet our shared climate goals, we really have got to focus our efforts on decarbonising every sector of the economy. And to achieve this, climate change must become an issue for every minister, not just energy and environment ministers. We need collaboration across the whole of society, from business and civil society to investors and institutions, if we're going to achieve these shared goals. You know, if I take away a few key words from the session, it's that we've got to be much more coordinated. We've got to maximise technological development, making sure that we invest in and get the voices of our young people, those for whom we are doing all of this, that they are part of this solution, that we make sure the finance flows work, and that those forward-thinking young people from across the globe in the communities that they know actually are invested in, so that we're seeing the best of them, that we make our cities much more efficient, alongside making sure that those who are still far outside what many of us would consider normal energy access are brought into the fold with modern technologies. So I think, you know, exactly that. This can only be done through targeted collaboration. And I think that absolutely should form a central theme to our efforts in the next decade. As governments, we're going to have to provide clear structures to help do that. But businesses and non-state actors working together internationally in every sector will be critical. It isn't governments who come up with the bright ideas. We provide the frameworks. It's our non-state actors and businesses, young entrepreneurs, who do that. So we must never forget that. And we need to bring them all together to accelerate the pace of the transition that we need to achieve. There are so many highly effective efforts already happening. A number mentioned today. Mission Innovation, of course, is one, through to the COP26 dialogues in energy, transport and nature that we're driving forwards. But I think there's also an opportunity for us to do more. So always that enhanced international collaboration is so important. And I want us to ensure that there's a golden thread of climate action weaved through every international gathering that we are all between us hosting in the months ahead, so that together we lay the foundations for a really successful COP26 and place focused collaboration within each sector at the heart of international efforts on climate change. Working together, we can make this possible. And I look forward very much to working with all of you. So thank you for joining this session. And I look forward to hearing the outcomes of some of the other panels through the course of the day, and to working with all of you on the road to Glasgow. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.